Welcome to our very first episode of The Plastic Cup. So the first thing I want to do is kind of a little bit introduce you to myself. My name is Brenda Glass, for those of you who don't know. My husband is the family pastor here at Community Baptist Church. We've been here for almost 2 years. In June, I think it'll be 2 years. But where this burden came from was those of you who know me, you know I like to talk. The Lord is always working on me of doing a little bit more listening, a little less talking. So hopefully I'll be doing a lot of listening today. But the burden came is I love hearing people's stories. I love to hear where they came from, what brought them there, what their families are like, and just through different ministries. We ministered up in Pennsylvania for several years and in South Carolina and things. I'm just fascinated by people and their stories. So in the past, I've heard people, share something with me, and I would say, would you ever share that, like in front of other ladies or at church, or because I think it's powerful? And a lot of times I'll hear this kind of response. It's like, well, that story's not really that important. It's not that big. It's not that dramatic. And I just think I've seen people's hearts changed by someone else's story. I've seen them open up because they didn't realize that person that they didn't know struggled in that area. And I just think there's power in people's stories, not because the story necessarily has all these powerful elements, but because our stories are intertwined with a greater story of Christ and his work and his plan, both in the past and now and in the future. And I find that exciting. And we have a small part in that. And no matter what we've experienced in life, we get to be part of that story. And I just think it's so powerful. So this is where kind of the burden came for this mini-series, is I want to hear people's stories. I want them to share what God's done and hopefully bless other people around them. And then the second question, why the plastic cup? And I have my wonderful plastic cup here. So this plastic cup in particular, I actually got this from a Walmart my freshman year of college. And I was such a dork. I had all pink stuff, and I had this quilty thing. I got it probably a Walmart bed in a bag or something. And I came to college, and I remember exactly what I was wearing. And it's funny because when I grabbed this cup in my kitchen, I just kind of laughed because it brings me right back to where I was. And even though I was super dorky, and my roommates, if they ever see this, they would totally concur with that. It tells a story, a time in my life, and I like to grab that cup and kind of, all those things flood back. So this idea of a plastic, in our house, we have plastic cups everywhere, because we have 4 kids and glass doesn't seem like a really good idea most days. So as I was thinking about an idea for this series, I was like, what can we give a title to that would give purpose, that would kind of drive this? And I was laying in bed when I couldn't go to sleep. So I was like, okay, Brenda, what in your house is sort of mundane, but super functional, super necessary? And I was like, cups, plastic cups. I love my plastic cups. My husband and I will always grab our plastic cups to drink from versus our glass cups. When we have company over, we do bring out the nice cups, so you don't have to see our dingy plastic cups. But they're not always beautiful on the outside. A lot of our cups have, like, I don't know about yours, but like the pictures and the words are all fading off from the dishwasher. They're kind of warped, some of them, or like this one has maybe dog marks on it. I don't know. But I won't get rid of them because to me they're invaluable. So that's this idea of every woman has a story. Everyone may not look the same on the outside and may not to ourselves be that beautiful, be that valuable, but they're functional and invaluable. And I just want this idea of everyday women sharing their stories. So the first person we have today is Melissa. Melissa has become a dear friend of mine. I have known her probably, I don't know, not 2 years even at this point. But I feel like I've known her for a long time. We have similar backgrounds and similar places and people, I guess. So, and right away I felt like our hearts were knit pretty close. At least I feel like that.
I do too.
Okay, because I was like, maybe I speak for myself. But, so we're going to some of us have only been here for a couple years or a year or a few months at Community Baptist Church. So they might not know you, but I'm sure they've heard your name floating around different prayer requests and things. So it's a chance, since we're all under quarantine and isolation, for you to share who you are with them and just kind of get to know you. So go ahead.
So I'm Melissa, my husband's Dwight. We have 2 kids, Jackson and Jasmine. And we were here at Community from, I don't know what year, 2009 when we got married. Jackson was born here in Franklin at Williamson Medical Center. We were at this church for 5 years, and then in 2014 we moved to North Africa, which was quite a crazy year, especially that first year. So that's our connection here with this church. We still call this our church. This is our home church. And so we are here right now for a few weeks. We're not quite sure how long we're going to be here because North Africa is not letting flights in at the moment. So we are here in Spring Hill, and I'm excited to be the first one to be interviewed.
Well, we're glad to have you. I hope that you've been settled here and it's been a good fit for you guys. But as we if you're here on the first episode of the Plastic Cup, I was just going to ask you, do you have a favorite cup, and why? Because I feel like most women out there, maybe men too, they kind of have their go-to cups. Actually, there's a couple of friends of ours, or a couple, they come over to our house quite a bit, and there's 2 plastic cups that are ours, but they've deemed it their cups, and they're like, where's my cup? So, or like, oh, I think it's in the dishwasher. So, plastic cups, they're kind of a real thing. So do you have?
Yeah, I actually have a very similar cup. It's blue, but a plastic cup like this, it has a lid, and I put a plastic straw in it, and I drink from it every day, water from that cup. So, I brought this one. This is from North Africa, from an ancient city near where we live. I actually have my kitchen in North Africa decked out with this pattern. Like, I have plates like this on the wall and stuff. I just think it's beautiful, and I love it.
It is beautiful. I love the pattern.
Yeah.
So, I know we've talked in the past. I think hospitality where you are is a big deal, and serving and kitchen and all that. So, with that, you probably do a lot of entertaining and things like that, and I'm kind of putting myself in your shoes. I'm imagining that if that were me, I would have had quite a few cultural blunders. I have them here, and I grew up here, so
you know this culture.
Yes, I know this culture. So can you share with us any of your faux pas that you've had?
We definitely have had our share of them. I think some of the worst ones were the first year we were there. Couple reasons. We were learning Arabic at the time, so we didn't really understand everything everybody was saying, and
that's not problematic.
Not at all. I sometimes don't understand everybody in English either. So.
Do you do a lot of that? Oh, okay.
Yes, a lot of nodding.
What did I just agree to?
Exactly. So we had befriended this North African family, and they were super friendly, super hospitable, but they had from my perspective, from the Arabic that I understood from the conversation, I thought that they were going to come to our house, and then we were going to go together to their house, and they were going to show us like where they lived. I didn't know, 2 cars or whatever, but they were going to show us where they lived, and we were going to eat couscous at their house. And couscous is like the classic North African dish. So they arrived at the house. I had on my jacket. I was ready to go, and they were like, "No. We said we were coming to your house and we're going to cook the couscous at your house." And I was like, oh. So Dwight and their son ended up going to the market right away to buy ingredients for this meal that we were going to cook. I don't think we ate till like 4 or 5. That was lunch. We didn't eat lunch till like 4 or 5 that day. But it was just a linguistical misunderstanding. We just didn't understand what they had said.
Totally understandable.
I have another one of us, more of like a cultural clash, where I was bringing my culture to a situation and they were bringing theirs. Jasmine was born in North Africa at a clinic there, which was a very interesting experience, a story for another day. But I was in the clinic. I had just given birth to Jasmine. She wasn't that old, less than a day. And 2 single girls that were my friends found out that we were at the clinic and came into, asked downstairs where we were, came into our room. And in America, we have this kind of, if someone has a baby, you bring a meal, you don't stay long, they've just had a baby. You text first, you give them their space. And I think that wasn't what these girls were thinking they were going to do. And they came in and they stayed for maybe 15, 20 minutes, and I clearly let them know that it was time for them to go. I think I just told them that I had to nurse and kind of let them know like the visit was over. Right. Because I just wanted to be alone with my husband and my baby. And And months later, I was talking to those girls about that situation, and they said, like, Melissa, we could tell that you weren't happy that we were there. And I felt so bad. And the girls said, Melissa, we just felt so bad for you because you're in this country and you don't have your mom, you don't have your sisters, and you just had a baby and you're all alone. And so we came to the clinic to be that for you, to be like your family, to be your sisters. And I felt so bad because they were being so sweet to me. But from my cultural perspective, I couldn't take guests at that time. So it was just one of those like faux pas for sure.
Absolutely. But you bring up a good point. The fact that you guys were able to talk about that and share, kind of like that aha moment of, that's why. That makes so much more sense, and it has so much more meaning now.
Yeah.
And it kind of takes away the offense, because you're like, I get it.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, one of the reasons we're going to do this. We're going to share stories, because I think it breaks down some of those faux pas, if you will, those things that hurt one another, that offend one another. Because I think sometimes the more you learn about people, the more you give them grace. Like, people that really offend you, it's most likely you don't have much of a relationship with them. Because typically, if you really kind of know them in order to come, you can kind of go, yeah, that was offensive, that hurt, but
you know that they love you.
They have a story,
because you know them.
Through, they're having a hard time, or they've had a hard time. I had one instance once where I was a little less than graceful towards somebody on social media, a friend of mine, back in the day. And I just felt like, they're so attention-y. Like, every day they're posting all this stuff and they're trying to be ultra spiritual in front of everyone. And I was like, it's just kind of annoying me. And I, of course, so wisely spoke up and was telling a mutual friend, like, what do you think about that? And she was very gracious. She didn't even kind of point out my sin, although it was, but she kind of basically was like, I just think this person has gone through so much trauma growing up. She ended up sharing that she had abuse in her background, and she thinks this is her way of processing things and dealing. And I was like, well, I feel very small now.
Yeah, giving each other grace.
And I think it was a moment for me. I was like, you know what, Brenda, do not judge. Even if you feel that way, even if it is true, like, who are you to judge? Like, it doesn't matter. And I think, again, now that I know that, when she shares stuff, all of a sudden that knowledge,
it's different.
It doesn't hit me the same way. So I think this is the idea, is just opening up those doors. So I'm going to ask you a question here, a little switching gears from the faux pas conversation. But, the idea of the cup, I think of Christ on the cross. That was one of the biggest, I think, cup analogies in Scripture, where Christ is hanging, or he's about to go to the cross, and he says, Lord, if it's possible, can you take this from me? And that's like God of creation, who knows all things, who knows the end of the story. And we don't quite understand all that, but that was a scenario that played out between him and the Father. And this idea of something really tough that I'm going to have to do, and I'm submitted, but you can still ask, Lord, can you please take this away from my plate, my life? Have you had any difficulties, whether overseas or here, just as a Christian woman? Have there been some difficulties you've experienced?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is just loneliness, especially when we first moved there. We had come from this church, and we were part of this family here, and we had so many wonderful friends. We still do. And we left to move to this country where we didn't know the language, and that was a very lonely time. And I have a specific memory of being up on the roof of our house, because we would hang our laundry up on the roof in North Africa, and just saying, like, God, I need friends, I miss friends. And just the impression that he put on my heart, like, you just need me. You just need me. And that was such a good time, although a hard time. And thankfully now, that was just for a season. That loneliness was for a season. And now we do have wonderful North African friends, as well as other expats who speak English that live there. I think another big thing is the language. We've been there 6 years, and my husband and I are now at the point where we carry on conversations in Arabic, and we have friendships that are completely in Arabic. But at the beginning it was hard because we were still learning it, but now I forget sometimes. Like, I'll go to a cafe with a woman, and I'll come home and I'm just tired. And part of the reason I'm tired is just because I'm speaking in another language. It's not her fault. I'm not speaking English. I'm not speaking my language, and sometimes that gets wearing, draining. So that can be difficult. Another thing that's difficult is so we live in a city with 5 million people, and it's just we're all like very tight on top of each other. And I didn't drive there for the first few years because I didn't know how to drive stick shift, and I was very nervous that I was gonna kill someone or kill my children or like do something terrible in the cars.
Valid fears.
Yes, valid. So I didn't, and then recently I did just kind of be like, okay, I got to get over this fear. I need to drive. And Dwight helped me with the stick shift, and we worked through that, and I am driving now, but it is still really stressful for me. I'm dodging motorcycles, dodging at times donkey carts. It's just so, the traffic's just so tight and different rules. I mean, it makes me miss Spring Hill driving. I love Spring Hill driving.
I bet Nashville is not that difficult anymore, right?
Anyway, but yeah, so driving, and I think also just balance in life. I'm still dealing with trying to work on our calling, the reason that we're there, as well as be a mom, a homeschool mom, a wife. I'm teaching a small little English class to some kids. Just trying to balance everything, and I think every mom and every woman deals with these same things of just prioritizing what's the most important, what do I need to be focusing on. So that's just a constant prayer request for me.
Well, absolutely. And really, some of these responsibilities that you had them before you went over, and then you added on the cultural part of it. So, and I think we can all understand just prioritizing. We all get, the world we live in is very loud, and it's very pressing. There's a lot of good things to do, and I would say most of us probably fill our lives with probably mostly good things, but sometimes it's how do I do all those things? But along with those, you and I have had conversations about even some of the neat things that you've experienced as a family, some of the things you've been able to offer your kids that you wouldn't have gotten here. Can you share some of those things?
Yeah, so my kids have had some awesome, unique experiences because we live overseas, and I'm just so grateful for that. We live 5 minutes from the biggest mosque in all of Africa, and it's right on the ocean. It's just a gorgeous view, and sometimes I'll take the kids down there and they can ride their scooters in the plaza. We've trekked on camels into the desert and spent the night in tents in the desert, just things like that my kids have had just really cool experiences, and I'm so thankful for that. And then even just their worldview, and ours too, has just opened up to we live in a country that's a 99% Islamic, in that there's different levels of poverty and different things that my kids have seen that they wouldn't have seen if they had lived here. And I hope that worldview will stay with them for the rest of their life, and those experiences and people that they've met.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was thinking, so when you go to the normal zoos around here, and there's a line a mile long to get a picture sitting on a camel, they probably would be like,
so boring.
Why would we wait in line for such a thing?
And why would we pay for it like that? Yeah.
Yeah, they would be like, my kids in the meantime, they're pretty excited when I put the little quarter in and they do the little merry-go-round on the little plastic thing, so that's where we are. Obviously not quite multicultural as you guys. But last question before we kind of close this episode, as we talk about the idea of our cups, and we talked about the difficulties, and we talked about the uniqueness of it all. God in His Scripture talks about letting God be your portion and things like that, and cups overflowing and things like that. So, what is it that fills your cup? What is it that fills your cup physically? We're physical, emotional, spiritual beings, and I think sometimes we want to focus on the spiritual, which is really good, but there's a physical aspect. You just get tired. Yeah. You just don't have it in you, the energy or whatever. And then also spiritually, how do you fill the cup? I thought, especially in those early months where you were so lonely, there wasn't that, you couldn't just meet with a friend and talk easily and things like that. So, how does that look for you?
Yeah, I think physically, even just trying to go for a run from time to time just kind of clears my brain. I also make my kids do rest time every day. They're too old for naps, so they'd have to go to their rooms, close the door, they can read their books or whatever.
Everyone out there is saying yes.
Yes, rest time.
Yes.
Get a cup of coffee, and I'll just sometimes just, turn my brain off or scroll through my phone, or that's helpful for me. But I think more than anything would be like the spiritual side of it, that my relationship with God. Like, I need that. I absolutely need that. Some of the situations I've experienced, they're just unique, and I don't have any previous experiences to draw from, or I don't even know how. I don't know how to handle it. I don't know what to do. But I have my relationship with God. I have my time in prayer and the Word, that it's living and it speaks. And I've kept a journal all these years, and just, if you went back and read just times where I just was discouraged or down, and God showed up for me. He came through for me and spoke to me through His Word. He understands. I think that is another big thing, that Jesus left heaven. He left this left his Father and left the beautiful heaven and came to this earth. And he was in a different culture, in a different world, so he understands how we feel. So talk to him. Why don't I talk to him even more? That he's understanding. And anyway, I think that's what fills my cup, is my relationship with him.
Honestly, a super needful message right now, because a lot of us are feeling isolated and lonely and missing connection with the family church or with family, different outlets. And I think that is crucial right now for your mental health and for your physical health and your spiritual health. Just understanding that God is always there and He wants to have a relationship with us. And unfortunately, sometimes it takes outside forces of isolation and things to kind of help us feel that need. And like you said, I was picturing when you were on that roof, just saying, God, I need friends. You probably had never felt that need for friends at until that moment.
Yeah.
But when you just kind of say it, you're just like, wow, and God's right there. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and I just appreciate your friendship. I feel like we were kind of ships passing, but our hearts were knit together, and I love our conversations.
And I'm just so thankful too that even though we're so far apart, that we can talk on Skype or FaceTime or those kind of things too. So.
Well, thank you so much. And for those of you who are just joining us, we are just finishing up with our first episode of The Plastic Cup, and we are here with Melissa, and we'll be praying for you guys.
Yep.
All right, thank you.